opening segment about AI, about its wonders, about its threats, about our concerns, about our anticipation of it, et cetera, et cetera. There was a gentleman from Anthropic named Dario Amodei had a quote, said that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs, and the resulting unemployment spike could get to 10 to 20%, and we're talking in the next 1 to 5 years. I mentioned, never quite got to it, but my own, sort of personal, mine is just a tangential little thing, but I'm surrounded by wonderful people. Rhonda as a producer, we're working together to create this, every day. Matt doing all the technical things necessary, Nikki in the newsroom, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're all out there in the universe gathering topics, looking at things. And what AI has done from Grok to Chat GPT for me is it's like a research assistant. I can, enter a couple of things in it, and I still Google 100 things, an hour. It does my Googling for me and presents a little summary. It's like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. So that's my toe in the pool of AI. It's awesome. It's great. Hadn't cost anybody a job. It's so that's lovely. So is there a way to garner the benefits, sidestep the negatives? Elon Musk appears to be one of the folks driven to do that. And also we find a brand new outfit called the Alliance for Secure AI. Its CEO is Brendan Steinhauser, and he's here. Hey, Brendan, nice to meet you. How you doing?
Good to be on with you, Mark. Thank you for having me.
How's the setup? Did I do okay?
I'd say you did quite well. In fact, I'm a very avid user of the current form of AI as well. I use it very similar in the way that you do. Research and finding information, and when you have your curiosity, it helps you answer questions and that sort of thing. So I think most people are familiar with the chatbots that we have now. The Alliance for Secure AI was started in order to really think about the potential for the next generation of AI and the potential risks and threats that are out there that kind of go to the next level. And we can get into that more, but we're not talking about the current iteration of chatbots. We're talking about something that could lead to what's called artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which is a whole other level that I think policymakers need to be thinking very seriously about.
Then let's define the term. What is our alternative general intelligence?
Yeah, so AGI is defined by most people in industry and observers as an artificial intelligence that can do any cognitive task that a human being can do at that same level or even better. So we're talking about essentially think of AIs of this next generation that can plan and reason and have essentially a PhD level knowledge of almost every subject that you can think of. And they're able to plan and take multi-step actions in order to act, in the real world, so to speak. And so most people, again, people who love this idea and people who are concerned about this idea, all generally agree this is coming within the next 2 to 4 to 5 years. No one knows for sure, but everyone's saying this is coming really fast, and we're not quite prepared for the implications of that.
I think that's fair. I think that's been true throughout history. As we have technology, we figure out how to do something, and we crank it up to 11. We put the pedal to the metal, and we do all these things, and then go, "Whoa! What have we done here? Have we examined all the moral and societal ramifications of it?" So this would be no different. But I think the stakes are a lot higher. There is a verb you used. I want to drill down on it. It said that you would say that this artificial general intelligence will be able to act. I like to think of humans as doing the acting, with AI advising us on how to act, but I sense that you really meant it when you said that this is technology that can act.
Yes, that's right. In fact, we've seen already examples in the real world and in testing models, these models that are, again, not even where they will be in the next generation, just within the next couple of years. But we've seen these models in the testing phases that have manipulated the user, that have lied to the user, that have even threatened the user. There was a famous case of a reporter that was kind of playing around with an early model, and it basically threatened him and said, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to expose you, and I'm going to threaten and blackmail you. So that we have some really weird things going, because we're developing essentially an intelligence. We're developing something we don't fully understand. It's kind of a black box that you can't really see the thinking. You can certainly see what it's trained on, the inputs, and you can see the outputs, the actual words that it comes out. But it's been really kind of interesting and somewhat frightening to see some of the behaviors so far with these, again, essentially these models that you could think of as, on the intelligence level of a middle schooler now, but then it's going on to be high school and then to college and then to much more beyond that. And so the concern is as these models get more powerful and faster in terms of their ability to, to calculate things and to reason and to take those steps in the real world, that we might have some issues here, especially if you have a human actor, whether it's a terrorist organization or just a bad actor, a criminal who wants to make use of AGI to harm other humans, to steal their money, to hack into our critical infrastructure. And so there's a lot of potential problems here, especially when you combine a bad human actor with a very powerful model of AGI.
Brendan Steinhauser is here. The group is the Alliance for Secure AI. The Twitter feed is Secure AI Now, and that's also the website, secureainow.org. Everything that happens, everything that has happened, everything that will happen in the world of AI is something because of something some human did. And we made this, we created this bed, and now we're going to lie in it. And we'd like to think that we program into it, hey, don't hurt us, don't kill us, all those kind of semi jokes. I say semi. And I go back 75 years, Isaac Asimov, iRobot, 1950, where the whole idea was, all right, we're going to make robots, they're going to do all kinds of things, and we're going to program into them only do things that are of benefit to humans. Sounds great, until the robots start to think for themselves and say, well, for humans' own good, we'd better do A, B, C, and D, and it's horrific. So I paint that only to say, does this echo into today? And are those the kinds of concerns with AI and AGI moving forward?
Mark, you hit the nail on the head. That is a big concern for pioneers of AI like Stuart Russell and Jeff Hinton and Joshua Bengio. If you have your AI chatbot look up those folks for you listeners, you'll see some of the articles they put out, some of the interviews they've done. Now, those are some of the prize-winning, Turing Award-winning thinkers and pioneers of AI, and they have said we have these concerns that we may not be able to control what we're creating, and that's called misalignment. And there's actually a colleague of mine working on that problem, working on how do you ensure that AIs of the future do comport with human values. And to your point, Mark, what are those values? Are these going to be American values of liberty and freedom, or are they going to be Chinese Communist Party values of control and authoritarianism? So we have some really, really big issues we need to think about, not only in terms of whether or not they're aligned or not, but I've heard people talking about these AI companions. I was listening to an interview with Vice President Vance talking about his concern with some of these chatbots that are AI companions, and I was thinking, this is the goal here would be to supposedly solve loneliness. But what if that leads to people who are arguing that AIs should be able to be in a relationship with human beings, be able to marry human beings? What does that do to human dignity and human control over the machines if the machines are now equal with us and then someday potentially controlling us? So I think there's some really big, philosophical, ethical, moral, and religious questions that we have to contend with, which is why you've seen a lot of religious leaders, including, of course, the new Pope Leo XIV, but also Protestant leaders who have sent a letter to the president saying, hey, we're really concerned about these questions. We're moving very, very fast, and we need to think through the implications of all of this.
What does that even look like, though? Because I would have the exact same sentiment. It's like, we need to be careful. We need to look at this. As soon as we say, what does that mean? Slowing down, not do it. That's almost counterintuitive to human nature. As I've described, and I know, and I think I'm right about this. If there's anything we figure out that we can do, we're going to do it. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to do it immediately, and then sort of figure out what we've done later. So is this a call to sort of slow things down and be more self-aware about stuff like that? Because if so, good luck.
Well, I think that is certainly one approach, and I think you're right. It's hard to see that the frontier labs developing AGI are going to slow down anytime soon. We certainly, as a good conservative, I want them to do that. I want them to do the patriotic thing that's also in their self-interest. I want them to act in the interest of humanity. All of these things are aligned, and that is to impose their own sort of private sector solutions to the problem, to slow down, to do testing, to alert each other if they see some dangerous capabilities arise in these models, to really make sure that they're upping their own physical and information security, so the Chinese spies who are in their labs right now don't have access to this stuff. They need to do some of their own work, some of their own counterintelligence capabilities. So there's a lot that the frontier labs, and I'm talking about Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google DeepMind in particular, they need to up their game in terms of security to ensure the Chinese Communist Party isn't stealing the model weights, which are the products that they're creating. That would be a big step in the right direction. And then, of course, the president and his team have been doing a lot as well on chip controls, on exporting chips, preventing the export of chips to China, for example. And that is a very tough road, but it's something we support, and I think that's part of the answer. But I think in general, look, I would encourage your listeners to just do their research on this, come to their own conclusions, and then be in touch with, their leaders, be in touch with people that have the ability to make policy on this. And we need to start the conversation because no one person has every answer to this. I just think we need to understand what's coming, and that is coming very, very rapidly.
So at secureainow.org, which is the Alliance for Secure AI website, you have a little banner there that says mitigating risks, protecting humanity. Last question. Like 0 to 10, old John McLaughlin, 0 to 10, your level of optimism on being able to actually do that. Do you approach this with a certain level of cautious optimism that we will succeed and garner benefits without some of the nightmares?
That's a great question, Mark. My short answer is I would probably say I'm about at a 6 or 7 in terms of my optimism chart there. I think that we can do it, but I think that it's going to require a lot more effort and investment from these private firms into the alignment problem. I think they have to pour money into researching how do we solve alignment? How do we make sure that we are able to control AI, that we're able to impart it with human values, basic universal values. I would prefer that they are American values of liberty and freedom and individual rights, but that's a very tough thing to do. But I think that is where most experts agree. The observers that are looking at this are saying we really need to solve the alignment problem, and that's how we prevent this stuff from getting out of our control. Because if it does get out of control, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. At that point, it's too late. And I'm hopeful that we will solve this, and I pray that we will.
Am I correct that we have discovered you pretty well at the moment of your organization's birth as Alliance for Secure AI, pretty brand new?
Yes. In fact, we are launching at a public event in Washington, D.C. later. I live and work in Austin, Texas, but we're launching here in D.C. because this is where policymakers are. This is where a lot of the media are who are covering this topic. And so we've got a great team that's going to be joining us for the launch at the National Press Club this afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Central.
Well, this is timely. Well, here's what you've done. You've now created a relationship, and if it's okay, we'd like to bug you from time to time and visit sort of the pathway forward and see how we're doing on this. And if that's okay with you, we'd love to do it.
I'd be honored to do that, Mark. I'm a big fan of your show, and I'd love to come back on and talk about this in the future.
Thank you, man. It's Brendan Steinhauser, CEO of the Alliance for Secure AI. Wonderful follow on the old X Twitter, at Secure AI Now. And that's the website, too, secureainow.org. All righty. Mark.